We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and your friends if you want to donate to this college football rebel outpost. Hit the $ when you make a comment, and I'll get you a super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend. With the comments in the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. Again, December 10th, we have got a stacked show. I mean, it is absolutely stacked. I've got, I've always got people in the PATC family DMing me. Some of them some of them can text me, and people are always saying, Greg, you should do your show this way. You should format your show that way. You're a national college football YouTube channel. You should have Mondays be Big Ten days. Tuesday be Big 12 day. SEC on a Wednesday. ACC on a Thursday. G5 or Potpourri on a Friday. Or they say have completely separate channels made for every part of college football. I do appreciate the suggestions. I really do. but I'm going to keep it as it is. I'm going to keep it as it is. We here at Peek Around the Corner, although I do argue for better guardrails or real guardrails around college football and this wild, wild west sport that we all love, I do not want to put guardrails on this show. Today I want to talk about anything and everything in college football. And basically that's what we're going to do. So no guardrails for PATC. No guardrails for the fat guy in Minnesota. I don't know, sometimes when I lay my head on a pillow the night before, I kind of know the direction of the show. Kind of, sort of, maybe. But oftentimes it all changes. It all changes. And that's what's happened today. By the way, thank you for everybody for coming on in. Let's do a quick roll call, and then, boy, we got big stories. We got little stories. We got stories. Skoducky is in the house. Florida Man, the Big Lubbock, Patrick Bear, Kay Struthers, John Dry, James Foster. Let's go Sun Devils. Holy smokes. An epic season for the Arizona State Sun Devils. Laura Weiss, the Red Raider. The Evil Badger, Jeff Olson, is in the house. The Texas Longhorn, Larry the GM, is here. Patrick, the Baylor Bear, Mr. Seminoles. Kerry Gold Nose, Mr. Michigan Wolverine, Jay Go Blue. Kurt Dominic is in early today. Connecticut fan is here. Keith Jackson would be unhappy over Bama not being included in the playoffs. Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Keith Jackson. Mr. Colorado Buffalo, Richard L. is in the house. Stephen Clark, Vox Quindaro, Kansas Jayhawk. Randy Taylor is here. My Prof is here. Daniel Gorby is in the house. Son of Sarek, Jose USC Fighting Trojan. Rock and Rant. We're going to talk about the Mr. Thomas Castellanos to Florida State. It surprised me a little bit. I guess it shouldn't have. Nick Kelso is in the house. Okay, let's get to it because I think our monologue is going to last a while. And I want to get to the phone calls. It's been a busy day here at Peek Around the Corner. Busy day. Let's get to some of the stories pop in, and then we got a lot of big ones to pop. Malik Murphy, the Duke, plans to enter into the NCAA transfer portal. Malik Murphy now, in some ways, how do I say this? Malik Murphy, for me personally, runs hot and cold. He definitely needs more development. If you look at his statistics, they're pretty good. They're not bad. He could be more accurate. I said during the season, we did a couple watch parties, Duke. We watched the end of Duke and SMU. Malik Murphy ran hot and cold, and I think he can run a whole lot hotter. But I was like disappointed. I was like, oh man, Duke is going to lose another QB1 into the portal. Second year in a row, they lost Riley Leonard to Notre Dame. And now they're going to lose Malik Murphy? But then this popped. Tulane quarterback Darian Mensah has scheduled a visit to Duke today. He's ESPN's #1 overall portal recruit. This is his first visit. Now, of course, that doesn't mean he's going to Duke. It doesn't mean that Mensah is going to Duke. But this kid's pretty sharp, man. He's a pretty sharp individual. And I really liked him at Tulane this year. I've talked about it. That Kansas State game is seared in my brain. Darian Mensah made so many plays for the Green Wave in that game. They lost. It was a close one to the Wildcats early in the season. But Darian Mensah has the tools. And if Duke can land Mensah, well, I think for right now, I think that's an upgrade. I mean, let me put it this way. I think Mensah might have the higher ceiling. Definitely the higher ceiling. That's just my opinion. That is just my opinion. Let me know how wrong I got it. So, I guess if they can get Mensah, I'm not going to feel too bad about Duke's situation. On 3, P. Knuckles has logged a prediction for Florida State to land Boston College transfer quarterback Thomas Castellanos. Now I put it on X. I tweeted out, I don't know how long it was. Not too long ago, maybe 4 or 5 days ago. I said Thomas Castellanos, the kid can play. He can. The young man can play football. But I thought, I was speculating. I'm thinking, what mid-level power, mid to lower Power 4 conference school is going to get him, or a high G5 school? But it turns out that Florida State is in the driver's seat. This is good for Thomas Castellanos, but is it good for Florida State? One of the good it's helpful for Florida State to have a quarterback like Castellanos because of his incredible mobility and his sixth sense to get out of trouble. Because Florida State's going to bring basically a whole new offensive line in. And they're going to have, continuity issues. They're going to have stability issues. They're not going to be, whatever offensive line the Seminoles bring in, they're going to be better at the end of the year than at the start of the year. And a guy like TC Thomas Castellanos is probably a good selection. This type of play. I just figured that Florida, this is not a shot against Thomas Castellanos. But I was believing that Florida State was going to get, I don't know, somebody else. This could work out. Now, people like Rock and Rant and other people have been educating me on that Castellanos is a fit. Daniel Gorby in the chat room, just put the chat room down. Just put it in there. A fit for Gus Malzahn's offense. He did go to UCF for a cup of coffee. Gus Malzahn got him to commit. Gus Malzahn recruited him. Gus Malzahn is the new Florida State offensive coordinator. So maybe this all works out. Maybe it does. A great opportunity for this young man. A great opportunity. Ross Dellinger, the Mountain West is finalizing an expansion deal to add UC Davis to the conference. Sources tell Yahoo Sports. The deal would be for all sports except for football. So the Mountain West, as of right now today, Tuesday, December 10th, for the 2026 season. Remember, 2025, the Mountain West Conference is going to be the same conference as it was this year. But 2026, right now they've got 8 full members, football members, full members. And then they've got Grand Canyon and now UC Davis. The Mountain West Conference is going to have to, they have to basically add another full member, another football. I should say football. Excuse me, let me correct myself. The Mountain West is going to have to add at least one more football member. It could be a full member, but they're going to have to have a football program. So the Mountain West is not done yet. Not done yet. Not done. So UC Davis. Now, when I read this, my first thought was the following. UC Davis agreeing to join this conference in all sports but football. Is there a contingency plan? Is there something that UCF Davis has in writing to where in the future, if the Mountain West Conference loses more members, that UCF Davis football program could have a pathway from going to FCS to FBS to play in the Mountain West Conference? And that would be supported and possibly at least partially paid for by the Mountain West Conference. That was my first thought. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. This is my speculation. I do not know. By UCF Davis agreeing to this, maybe the future skids can be greased between UC Davis and the Mountain West? Possibly. Possibly. John Butler, Nebraska Cornhuskers, set to promote John Butler to be the school's new defensive coordinator. He came to Nebraska this spring of 2024, after a lengthy NFL career. He's the former defensive coordinator at Penn State. So they got the guy. This was what many of the people locally at Lincoln thought was going to be the new defensive coordinator after the great Tony White left for Florida State. So there it is. It's become official. And one more item that's going to eventually lead to our main story of today. From Front Office Sports, NFL owners are set to vote on a prospective owners of minority stakes in multiple teams. Nets owner, former NBA star Vince Carter, and private equity firms are among those up for approval. For the first time, minority shares, minority ownership of NFL franchises can be sold to private equity. Now, none of them have been officially approved yet, but there is a pathway for this to happen, which at the back end of this monologue on December 10th, we are once again in the Holy Smokes Theater, the invasion of private equity. Private equity needs certainty. Private equity needs certainty. Neither men on the stage in this Holy Smokes Theater. You're looking at the theater. If you're looking at your screen, you're looking inside the theater. Neither man up there has certainty. The man on your left, Bubba Cunningham, and the man on your right, Brett Yormark. However, the road to certainty for the man on your right, Brett Yormark, is a whole lot easier than for the man on your left, Mr. Bubba Cunningham. And that, my friends, everybody in the PATC family, everybody that is in the chat room, and everybody who's going to watch this show later on tonight. That, my friend, is Florida State's and Clemson's greatest leverage. We'll get into it. But we got other stuff we got to get into first. We've got so much to get to. This is not going to surprise anybody. Not if you've been watching our show. Not if you watch the September 9th live show that we said was going to be epic. Yahoo Sports, Ross Dellinger. This was about 30 minutes ago. Will the college football playoff format change again after consolidation of power leagues? Greg Sankey, quote, we have a whole different dynamic. Again, there's a link in the description box below the video if you want to read the whole article. I'm not going to go through the whole article. You can imagine what he says, though, right? You can imagine what he says. He's not happy. He's not happy. We're seeing the stress points that we knew would be there, but I actually think they are as or more volatile than we thought. Now we have a whole different conference dynamic. So what happens? On Tuesday, today, this was the first public comments since the reveal of the college football playoff bracket on Sunday. Sankey declined to comment or offered only limited thoughts about potential changes to both the format and the selection process. But the conversations are expected to start next month, January, when the college football playoff leaders, commissioners, school presidents gather at the site of the national championship game in Atlanta for their annual meetings. Sankey, I need to have a better understanding with their decision making than I have right now. He did not expound on his answer and declined follow-up questions. However, Sankey did confirm that changes to the college football playoffs can be made as soon as next year's playoffs. Right? They can be made. Most of those changes are going to have unanimous from everybody, as the leagues remain bound to a previous agreement that expires after the 2025 postseason. The leagues agreed in the spring on the 6-year extension to 2031. Right? These are the protections that are put in place. I just went through this yesterday. The automatic inclusion of the 5 highest ranked conference champions. This cannot be replaced, ladies and gentlemen. Number 2, a protection for independent Notre Dame if the school finishes high enough in the committee rankings. That cannot change. And number 3, a field of 12 or 14 teams. That can change. Well, let me put it this way. Any one of these 3 can change, but you got to have everybody agreeing to it. It's not by simple majority. It's not by the votes of the Big Ten and the SEC. They do not have control to make these changes. The field of 12 to 14 teams, there is an agreement with ESPN on the 12 and on the 14. If they wanted to go to 14, ESPN would have to go and approve it. It's been approved. It's been approved. The contract is 12 or 14. However, everything else can be changed. Most notably, the future of the automatic first-round buys designed by conference champions, the number of automatic qualifiers designated per conference, and the selection and the seeding process of the 13-member committee. This year's bracket does not align with the committee's rankings because of the rule granting only conference champions a first-round bye. any top 4 seeds in the field. For example, Boise State, the number 9 in the committee's rankings, is seeded 3. Arizona State 12 is seeded 4. If you did have it by rankings, Texas and Penn State would be in the top 4, and Ohio State and Tennessee would be ranked 6 and 7, not 8 and 9. Big Ten and SEC officials, according to Yahoo Sports, as well as other highly placed sources around college athletics, believe that leaders will re-examine the first round bye rule, potentially seeding the field in alignment with the rankings. There is another potential alteration. During the college football playoff negotiations in the spring, the Big Ten proposed a 12 or 14 team bracket that designated 3 automatic berths, each for the SEC and the Big Ten, 2 for the ACC and the Big 12, 1 for the highest ranked group of 5 champion, 1 or 3 at-large selections. The automatic berths would presumably be based on conference standings. And if that happens, that would protect the conference championship games, or I should say the conference championship losers of the 4 power conferences, right? You wouldn't have to worry. It might affect your seeding, but it would not kick you out of the playoffs if you shall lose a conference championship game, if you are a member of the Big 12, ACC, the Big 10, or the SEC. There is a lot of feedback about let's go back to the BCS and let the computers do it. Well, in the BCS era, we said we need people. So anyways, there is, you can read more of this. I do have a link in the description below the video. You can read it all, but basically, is there going to be changes to the format? Yes, of course there is. There is. Could there be added automatic qualifiers for each conference? There probably will be. I made a big deal of it in the September live show. I said the Big Ten will probably settle for 3, but they're shooting for 4. So we know this to be the case. So, and then there were follow-up articles, and so there will be changes. But there are some things that will not change during this contract year. The G5 are going to have access. There's going to be automatic berths for the top 5 conference rated champions. Period. And if there is a change to where it doesn't matter if you're a conference champion or not, if the top 4 ranked teams, if they keep it to the 12-team format, and if it's the top 4 ranked teams, regardless if you're a conference champion or not, if they get the byes in the first round, well, that again, once again, is a bouquet of flowers delivered to Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Because again, they would not have to be a conference champion to get a bye. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. What did I pass it up? What did I pass up? The computer stuff. I'm not sure what I passed up, but you can let me know later on. I don't know what I passed up. Can you guys let me know just let me know in the chat what part did I pass up? Okay. Holy smokes. Deuce Robinson. Deuce Robinson is going into the portal from USC. Man, oh man. Something going on there. Man, oh man. Deuce Robinson. A lot of talent. A lot of talent. Okay. Okay. Let's get to one other part. We dropped an episode 50 of Early Peak Cloak and Dagger. Early Peak Cloak and Dagger. Episode 50. If you are a member of this channel, I want you to go and watch it. And then tomorrow on the live show, we're going to be covering it. TCU's aspirations. Go take a look at it. It's an Early Peak Cloak and Dagger for members only. If you want to become a member of PATC, go to the description box below the video. There's a link provided. Hit the link, hit the join button to become a member, to watch our Early Peak Cloak and Dagger episodes. We also dropped episode 414, and that is for everybody. Everybody, a peek around the corner, everybody. Episode 414, go give that a watch. We're talking about Bill Belichick getting an offer from UNC, and now that offer is also in front of the UNC Board of Regents, as they have to approve it. So go watch that episode as well. We've got okay. I'm sorry. This is so much going on. And a lot of it is related to our number one topic. It's something that I've been trying to Ross Dellinger, Signs of the Times here in Las Vegas. This was tweeted out 8 minutes ago. Big 12 held athletic director meetings here that featured presentations from several big brands, including Verizon, PayPal, and New Era, related to revenue generating partnership and commercial deals. Okay? I'm trying to figure out how far I can go with this now that this has been tweeted out. The Verizon one we at Peek Around the Corner has known about. This other two we did not know. Let's just go to the main attraction, and I think we can talk about that in more detail when more public articles are coming out. Let's get to the Sportico article, The Business of Sports. This came out today, December 10th, and it's not a shocker, but it's there's nothing shocking in this. And boy, am I glad this is out. Florida State, 6th Street ended investment talks about a year ago. Florida State University and private equity giant 6th Street mutually agreed to end talks. Remember, we made it a big deal. In fact, there was one live show, we gave a bunch of hints that the Florida State athletic director met with 6th Street in Chicago. We know that happened. That was last year. We made a big... anyways, we talked about this. But here is the money. And again, I will provide a link of this article in the description box below the video. You can read the whole thing. I don't think I have a link there now, but I'll add it. I will add it after the show so you can go back and read this article. Basically, here is the main point. The two main points of uncertainty. Florida State's legal battle to leave the ACC and the ongoing settlement talks, House versus NCAA, proved too hard to overcome, said the people. Because the details are private. We're granted anonymity. Okay? Two main points of uncertainty. Florida State's legal battle to leave the ACC and the ongoing settlement talks in House versus NCAA. The ongoing settlement talks, House versus NCAA. That is the straw that is stirring the drink right now, right? We're all waiting. It should be finalized probably July. We should probably know somewhat of the structure going forward. By the way, that is causing your mark in the Big 12 to kind of like, okay, let's get our ducks in a row. Let's get our ducks in a row. Let's make sure that we've got everything ready. He's trying to get all the Big 12 presidents on board for the investment of private equity. They can't pull the trigger now. The decision on UConn. Remember when I came out a few months ago and I said the UConn decision is not going to be a yes or no in 2024. That's going to be decided later in 2025. And then a couple weeks later, the reports came out that it's not a no or a yes. It's a later decision. It all involves around private equity. So getting back to Ross Dellinger's tweet about meeting with Verizon and PayPal and what private equity gives you, what they can give you are contacts, relationships. So the settlement talks is a hurdle for everybody to pull the trigger on anything, on private equity. But the greatest leverage that Florida State and Clemson has is the uncertainty around the ACC. And we talked about this 2 months ago. 2 months ago. North Carolina money perch. And then we got it confirmed by some people behind the curtain, the chatter behind the curtain, that North Carolina is so desperate to get to the money at the side, and some other schools as well, talking to private equity. But to do it at a conference level, the ACC doesn't have that option. They don't have that option. When this NCAA versus the House gets all settled, the ACC still cannot act at a conference level. The Big 12 will be able to. And that is why you've got people talking about it in whispers. I don't talk in whispers. I do not talk in whispers. But that is why some people are when it comes to this crazy theory. This crazy theory. It is crazy, of dissolution. But this is the leverage that Florida State and Clemson has. They've got their foot on the brakes on the ACC. The ACC cannot, if they wanted to, they cannot do what Big 12 can do. Even after the NCAA versus the House comes to a resolution. This is what I've been talking about for months. Now we're on months, couple months. And this right here, the two main points of uncertainty. Florida State's legal battle to leave the ACC. That is going to remain even after the settlement talks of the House versus NCAA. And this is what teams like programs, athletic departments, leadership, there are ACC institutions. Yeah, they're worried about the gap between them and the Big Ten and the SEC. Absolutely. It's why Florida State and Clemson sued the conference. But now they're worried about the potential gap between themselves and the Big 12 because the Big 12 is going to have certainty in the eyes of private equity once the House versus the NCAA gets a resolution. The Big 12 can offer private equity certainty. And Yormark's been working on this. And yeah, Connecticut fan, I get it. I mean, it's why UConn is in the mix. It's not about their football wins. It's not. It's about the market. And by the way, as good as the Big 12 institutions are, as great as the fan bases are, Yormark is going to be looking for markets that have money. Because that's what private equity wants. They want those companies. We already went down this many, many times. It's why UConn is in the mix. And it's why they did not get a no. They did not get a yes. They may not get a yes, but they definitely did not get a no. Going back to North Carolina, going back to Florida State, going back to Clemson, going back to Miami, going back to North Carolina State, going back to Virginia, going back to Duke. Here they sit in a conference that internally two of the best, the biggest, the most valuable brands are suing the conference. And they can't touch the private equity. They don't even have the option at a conference level. At a school level, maybe they can pull it off. Probably not. Probably not. The same reason Florida State couldn't pull it off. This is the drama, guys. This is the drama. This is why we open up the Holy Smokes Theater. Every time we open up the Holy Smokes Theater to a new drama, it means something. Even if no one else is talking about it. Florida State, private equity, they had serious talks way down the road, but private equity cannot do the deal. You got Florida State suing, NCAA versus the House. You don't know what's going to happen to the ACC. So, that's the story. And where it goes to, I don't know. But we've got the Holy Smokes Theater all set up. We're talking about it. We're way ahead of the game. There are ACC institutions that want to have the same options that a Baylor, that a Houston, that an Iowa State, that a BYU, that a West Virginia, that a Cincinnati, that a UCF, that all the Big 12 schools could pull the trigger on at a conference level. They want the same option, and they don't have it. They don't have it. And because they don't have it, and if the Big 12 pulls the trigger, which Brett Yormark has been working on, this is his game, this is his avenue, this is what he wants to do. If the Big 12 pulls the trigger, then the ACC's biggest fear is no longer the SEC and the Big 10, but their fear is the Big 12. Because if the Big 12 pulls the trigger and it works, and by the way, it's been working for the NBA. It's been working for the NBA. I'm sorry, it has been. Why do you think the NFL? Why do you think the NFL? Why do you think NFL owners can sell minority stakes to private equity firms? This is Florida State's and Clemson's greatest leverage. This, that they're suing the conference, they've got their foots on the brake, and Florida, I know, before I get to your phone calls, I know it's crazy. I am with you on the craziness of it. It probably ain't going to happen. No doubt it's not going to happen. Well, most definitely probably not going to happen. The dissolution. But maybe it will. because if the Big 12 goes on and do what they're going to do, if they pull the trigger, once the House settlement's done, if they incorporate UConn in the conference, and everybody understands, everybody knows why UConn's in, great brand, big brand, media, but that private equity money, that contact, the Big 12 gets a little bit better deal. BYU, Baylor, Houston, Oklahoma State gets all a little bit of a better deal potentially because USC is included. This is the grind. This is going to grind on the ACC. And that is Florida State's and Clemson's greatest leverage. As crazy as the dissolution theory sounds, it hasn't been done. It probably isn't going to happen. Maybe they get sued. But they've talked about it before. Magnificent Seven. North Carolina has talked about it internally. And lately, the reason we brought it up 2 months ago is because we know they're talking about it again. We were told by a money perch, and you say, Greg, well, you're wrong. Okay, fine. But then we went and we ringing up the flagpole, and we got to salute. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but for sure it wasn't knocked down. It wasn't. As crazy as the whole thing sounds, it might be North Carolina, it might be Clemson, it might be Florida State, it might be Miami, it might be Virginia, Virginia Tech, Duke, North Carolina State. It might be their only option to combat what the Big 12 could, should, would, probably going to end up doing. It might be their only option. That's this. That is this. That's why the holy smokes. And this article, when I saw this article get released today about Florida State, it ain't happening because of the uncertainty of the ACC and the House versus NCAA. I said, thank you so much. More and more of this is going to be coming out. More and more of this. More and more of this stuff is going to be coming out. The Big 12, man, I'm telling you, they've got ideas on different revenue streams. We've talked about some of it. We kind of pushed the envelope maybe a little too far on it. So now I just got another report. Things are going a little bit, okay. Let's open up the phone lines. I only can do so much on one show. Let's do it. Let me know how wrong I got everything once again. The phone line, 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. The Big 12 held athletic director meetings that featured presentations from big brands.
From
Immaculate,
Mr. Hawkeye. Thanks for calling, sir. The floor is yours.
hey man, things are picking up quick. Holy cow.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly just wanted to call in just to point you at that one little thing real quick if I could, but
Sure.
otherwise, also the TCU situation. You were right there, got to the point where it said, in the BCS era, we need people. The follow-up question to that, to Sankey, was, if computers and humans are not the solution to selecting playoff teams, doesn't that leave one last effort for conference standings to determine the field? And Sankey said, I'm not commenting on that, but you can draw that conclusion. Like, that's yes without saying yes.
Okay. I did not. That's the automatic qualifier spot, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, that's something that they can change. Both those conferences can do it. If they agree with each other, there's no protections. I mean, politically, they're going to have to, they're going to have to work with everybody on this. But yes, I think, I talked about it on September 9th.
You did.
Yeah, and I got raked over the coals by some people.
You did. That's why I was like, you got to that point and you didn't say it. I'm like, oh, come on, Greg, it's right there. It's teed up for you.
I think people are starting to, I think we're going to get there, exactly how it's going to look like. And to be honest, I know, so it said in that article 12 to 14, 12 or 14. And
yeah, because that was agreed upon.
Because that's agreed upon. But I mean, they could go to 16
if they agree on it, yeah.
If ESPN agrees on it, and that a lot of that is going to be like, what type of ratings are they going to get? I think they're going to get great ratings here this December 20th and 21st. But yeah, but go ahead, son. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. I think that they'd like the extra value of winning a championship, getting the bye. I think they see some value in that. I can't, put it all up in a spreadsheet and say like it gives this value and that value. But here's my problem and issue, and I have a little too much ignorance in this to really say for sure. But part of the problem is, and you were illustrating how they might try to figure out a way in the season to create these matchups that could then be used to carry over to the postseason. And while I think that that's one possibility, when it comes to this, that's really hard to do in the Big Ten because of the Ohio State-Michigan matchup. Mm-hmm. I mean, that thing is contractually obligated to be that week, especially that time slot. So really the only way that for the Big Ten to do something like that is if luckily somehow Ohio State and Michigan line up to be in one of those play games. So they would have to do it during conference championship week. And they are only sanctioned by the NCAA to have one postseason conference game. I don't know the legal ramifications of them trying to do another one. All of this other stuff, the CFP, that's off of bowl games. They put that on top of what was already kind of like, okay, you're already doing that. What this is talking about is creating new games that are conference games and postseason. I don't know where like legally speaking that falls. I don't know if they've already got that maybe in the new governance that's coming here, in 2 months? I don't know. But that sounds like a problem for the NCAA. So when they're starting to talk about this stuff, it's not about, okay, we're talking about it and people are going to think about it and they're going to have their reactions to it, whether it's positive or negative. I don't know how they actually do it. Now, in some conferences, that whole final week thing may be less of a problem than it is for the Big Ten. But for the Big Ten, that's a big problem. So I'm seeing this going, okay, this is very interesting stuff. I mean, this is them saying we want to do something more, it's on the field, determined on the field, less opinion, less committee, less all of this. I just don't know how it gets done. And that's where I kind of lean on you and on some of these reportings coming out. But that's very interesting now that he is taking that next step to say, we're kind of over this. We're looking at the next thing. What's that next thing going to be? I've made a suggestion. You've made suggestions. Everyone has suggestions. We'll see what it really is.
Yeah.
And then finally, just real quick, and then I'm out of here. The TCU thing is very interesting, but I still have to think that that's not very high on the Big Ten's order of things unless it's part of a larger movement. And what I'll say is, say that there's a group of private schools that maybe want to come to the Big Ten. They might look at that and say there's not enough private schools there for voting purposes in the future. So then you have a negotiation of which private schools you bring in, and then maybe a TCU could get thrown in there. And you might have more information on that to come here in the future that we just don't know about, but I'm not sure if Dallas is enough. But it's interesting, man. If they're looking at that wide of a net of who could be what, I don't know. It's going to be fun to see, but some big questions come to mind. So that's all I got on that. I just really wanted to point that out to you because I felt like you deserve your kudos for that. But
yeah, I appreciate it, Immaculate. Yeah, we'll see how it all. If the SEC is getting warmer to it, the Big Ten was. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we're not gonna. I tried to explain this as kindly as I could yesterday. We're not gonna see a format during the current structure, during this current contract. We're not going to see a format of the best 12 teams that make the playoffs. It can't happen. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get it done because there's protections on the top 5 ranked conference champions getting an automatic berth. Not a bye, but an automatic berth. That's in there. And no one's going to, G5 ain't going to give that up. No conference, a Big 12, ACC, they're not going to give that up. So, but there could be a lot of other changes. Yes.
Awesome. All right, well, I appreciate it, man. I'm going to get off here so the next people can get on. I really appreciate what you're doing. So we'll talk to you again later.
Sir. Well, we'll talk about the TCU a little bit here. Again, it's we talked about it. Now, if you are a member of if you become a member of our channel, once in a while we drop an early peek Cloak and Dagger episodes for members only. We have episodes for everybody. We have membership episodes given people who support this program through a donation or buying a subscription. We give them information before we go on live. Some information before we go on live. There was an article in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram that talked about how the successor to the current athletic director will have to have Big Ten aspirations. Does have Big Ten aspirations. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing now, but let me point it to this way. The next TCU athletic director will be tasked with those responsibilities as well as the silent hope of scoring an invite to the Big Ten. Now, a lot of this really isn't new, okay? It's not new. And I explained in the membership episode, I explained a couple things. One is TCU to the Big Ten is not imminent. It's not in the near future. I don't believe.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, can you hold on for one moment, please?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. I don't believe it's imminent or in the near future. Definitely don't think it's like a fait accompli. Absolutely not. There are other parts to this story that I did not even include. It's not in this article. And I'll get to it at a different live show 4, 5, 6 months from now or a year from now. But TCU is not a Big Ten university. It's not really a fit how it is now. And there's going to be parts of it that ain't going to be a fit 6 years from now. But it might fit the needs of the Big Ten 6 years from now if the Big Ten decides to expand beyond the number of 20. If they feel they need to plant their flag in the state of Texas to become a true national conference. If there is some radical change of the SEC taking their ball and separating themselves from everybody else, I don't think it's going to happen. But there's always a possibility. If that radical thing happens, then the Big Ten makes sure they get into the state of Texas. Or if there is a 2-conference breakaway, or if there's a whatever these radical things that could possibly happen, or just your more traditional, a conference is expanding because it serves the needs of the conference, or at least their perception of it. We've said this for a couple of years now. We've been told this, that as of right now, it might change 4 or 5 years from now, but as of right now, the available Texas schools, that TCU would have the inside track for an invite to the Big Ten. If the Big Ten decides to go to 24, for example, which we don't think that's in the near future. And we've gone over the reasons why, but and it's not a shot against Houston or Texas Tech or anybody else. Texas Tech is a booming university with booming money, booming enrollment. In some lanes, they are more of a Big Ten fit. And Houston, a huge market, and an emerging university. I mean, look what the University of Houston has done in the last 15 years. Really, a remarkable change. But TCU does. It is, first of all, it's in a market that it would be very. The Big Ten would love to be in that market. So anyway, I don't want to talk about, again, members who pay for this. I want them to have a couple days where they can watch it and think about it. And then we'll do a live program. We'll include everybody on it. I do want to say this about markets, because I'm seeing a lot of comments in the chat room about markets. BJ, I appreciate it. Can you hold on for just a little bit longer?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. The value of markets isn't always in the size of the market. Like for now, Stanford and California were, the Big Ten wasn't interested. Fox wasn't interested. Because in those markets, there's not a whole lot of eyeballs on the college football product. But sometimes in market, I'll give you one example. We have been told, you can agree with this, disagree with this, I'm just letting you know what we've been told. One of the reasons why the SEC and the Big Ten are having this advisory group, one of the big reasons why the SEC wants a formal or informal scheduling agreement, more games with the Big Ten, because ESPN, they are in agreement with this, by the way, ESPN. They may not agree to pay more, all that is part of the negotiations, but they would love to have more games between the two conferences. Why is that? Well, one of the big reasons is because ESPN, the SEC through ESPN, wants the Big Ten to take a trip into SEC country. They want those SEC home games against a Big Ten opponent on ESPN. Because the national advertisers want ESPN to have that type of product. ESPN, oh boy, I am going to get, people are going to be saying, Greg, you're Big Ten biased. I'm not, but whatever, go ahead and say it, but ESPN misses the Big Ten because their advertisers misses the Big Ten. Because the Big Ten has the markets that buy the products and the services of the national advertisers. So this is a way that they can get some of that back, get some of their national advertisers back during live content, live sports content, live sports football content, SEC content, by getting those markets to watch. A 1.2 million viewership of a football game isn't necessarily equal to another game that is $1.2 million 1.2 million viewership. They're not necessarily the same value to that media company. A lot of it is the market. It's the demographics of the market. It's the money of the market. It's the people in that market. Just another reason why the SEC wants Virginia and North Carolina. And a whole bunch of other stuff that I've been talking about. And that rarely ever gets talked about. And I don't talk about it enough. college football YouTube channels don't talk about it at all. They talk about viewership numbers only. But the market itself, the demographics of the market, who is watching it, and the money that the market has is so incredibly important to the media companies because it's so incredibly important to their advertisers. So what you want in a conference is the right blend of markets and intensity of fan bases of certain programs. You want a blend of it. And again, the Big Ten has a blend of it. And that has helped them tremendously. It's great to have a Rutgers and it's great to have a Nebraska for two different reasons. It's one of the reasons why Brett Yormark is still pushing for the UConn thing. You want a blend. You want to create a blend. Anyways, I think I went on long enough. BJ, the floor is yours. Let it rip, sir.
What's up, Greg? And thanks for allowing me to speak on your platform as always. I'm glad you spoke on the markets thing because, and from my interaction with folks, college football folks, that's something that they have a hard time grasping. That all markets aren't the same. It's a business. Economics plays a huge role, and the value of markets are completely different depending on where you are. And you know, I don't want to say it's classism, but you know, if you put the right brand in the right market, that's the ideal for great economic success. And that's off the field. But what I wanted to kind of speak on is we mentioned how the ACC is not in a position from a conference standpoint to move or shake anything, right? And I agree with you 100%. However, I think that instability is pervasive throughout college football altogether. TCU putting out the Fort Worth Star putting out an article about TCU aspirations to join the Big Ten or to be chosen. I would imagine that's not something that Brett Yormark wants to hear on the day they're presenting in Vegas, right? I also
I'm sorry, what was that again? Can you go back to that again?
The fact that TCU, the article about TCU and Big Ten aspirations, it's not a good look coming out on the day.
No, I'm gonna disagree. I'm gonna disagree. Hold on a second. Hold on.
Okay.
This TCU, this is not This is not imminent. It's not in the near future. This is not affecting the Big 12 at all. It isn't. This is an article written about TCU's aspirations. I am filling in the boxes on, the Big Ten. If they were to go to a bigger number, and TCU right now has the inside track, this is not affecting the Big 12. This is not even a pebble in the ocean. So I would push back on that, but go ahead, sir. I apologize for interrupting you.
No worries. I don't think you're getting what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying it's not good optically, right? If you're trying to sell a product, right, and you need cohesiveness. There's a reason why for over a year there's been talk of the Big 12 adding programs, be it Gonzaga, be it UConn, and it hasn't happened. There's not consensus within that conference on what the makeup should be, right? So if I'm investing private equity, I kind of want certainty, right? I mean, that's quite obvious.
Yeah, yes, and if you get private equity, you would have to sign a longer grant of rights, right? So
agreed.
So no question about it. So this whole TCU Big Ten thing, people don't take this like, don't make it bigger. It's Treat it like how it should be treated. That's all I'm saying. This is not. I'm giving you a little bit of a peek of something that might happen years from now. This is not creating no instability in the Big 12. That is, the Big 12 might not get this conference level private equity thing that Yormark wants, but it's not going to be for this. It's going to be for other stuff. But go ahead. That's the last time I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, you're good, Greg. This is your show. We both agree on that. My point is, Greg, there's a reason why UConn and UNLV or Gonzaga is not in the Big 12. If it was a consensus, they would be in there. There's been reports that Yormark is trying to convince, folks, ADs and presidents within the Big 12, that, hey, this is a good deal. So far, not, he hasn't succeeded. And on top of that, so to me, that's not cohesiveness, right? From a standpoint of growth. If I'm a private equity firm, I want to know who's going to be in the conference and how long they're going to be in the conference for if I'm investing billions of dollars in a conference. Yeah. And on top of that, I think with Greg Sankey, with his comments today, at the core of it, I agree with a lot of what he said, that, we agreed to this agreement, 5 equitable conferences, in theory, but we live in a space where we have 4 conferences that's not equitable, right? And they're not equitable due to the agreement that the ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips made and Brett Yormark agreed to. We're going to take less of a percentage, right? And you taking less of a percentage means you don't think in your own eyes you're as valuable. So if that's the case, I think that's the core to Sankey's argument, right? And as they go and redevelop and figure out what's the new layout is going to be, I think that's going to play a role into it. Not from a football competitive standpoint. I don't think that has anything to do with the value of a conference, right?
Yeah.
But I do think, from a value standpoint, that matters, right? That's just you can disagree, but I think that matters. I think the ACC and the Big 12 agreeing to a lesser percentage put them in a position where they're going to have to argue against any other agreement, right? They're going to have to argue for more money because I don't think the Big 12 or the Big 10 and the SEC is going to give them a higher percentage. I don't think they're going to get a bigger percentage. But I am curious to see, if, let's say, and this is 6 years down the road, once this contract ends with the CFP, what value, if the SEC and the Big Ten were to say, no, we're going to create the Super League or we're going to, cut off the ACC and cut off the Big 12. How valuable, if that were to happen, what value hit would the Power 2 take versus what value would the Middle 2 take? So to me, that's important because at the end of the day, the Big 12, the Power 2 drives the boat, right? They get the highest viewership, higher engagement, they get everything. So they do have value, and I think they should have a higher percentage of the pie, and it should have more teams in the playoffs. But I'm going to get off your line, Greg. As always, thanks for allowing me to speak on your platform.
All right. I appreciate it. Appreciate the call, sir. Thank you, Leslie A. Hill, for your donation. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for your super chat. Thank you for your support, helping us keep the lights on, Leslie. Thanks so very much.
Call from RMCO Logistics.
Hello, who am I talking to?
Hey, this is Travis.
Travis, can you hold on one moment, Travis? Can you please hold on one moment?
Yeah.
Number one, I'm seeing a lot of breaking news in the chat room, but I'm not getting on my X account. I'm not seeing any of this stuff. Supposedly UNC is finalizing the Belichick hire. It was just on the news. Well, we did cover the fact that early in the program that North Carolina has an offer to Belichick. If there's more news on that, let me know. We did talk about the Malik Murphy early in the show. Thank you, Expedition Greg. We're having other things of Nick Saban pushing for the Super League. If somebody can send that to me. I love the breaking news, but I don't quite. Sometimes I just don't see it. Bill Belichick has agreed to be the next coach. I still haven't seen that on my X account. So please send it to me on the DM about these breaking news if you get a chance. Thank you for keeping your head on a swivel, PATC family. I do appreciate it. Travis, go ahead, sir. The floor is yours. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, I want to talk about the TC and a pebble in the ocean, understood, and that's not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill here. But one of the things that I think is interesting that you're talking about is, when you're talking about the market demographics and the Big Ten, and they got into California, and obviously they've looked at Florida State and Miami. I'm wondering if there's a long-term, if the Big Ten's thinking about this one, where what's the existential threat to the Big Ten? The existential threat to the Big Ten is, there's 5 or 6 schools at the top, and then there's the middle class of the Big Ten isn't as good as, something else, and the SEC wants to break off and do their own Super League. I wonder if the Big Ten is thinking long-term from a market standpoint, that if I have a presence, if I have all of California and the West Coast, I have a presence in Florida, and I have a presence in Texas, do they create a concrete ceiling in a way where their media valuation, even if the football product is not as good as the SEC's, because of the markets they're in, literally every big coastal market between the 3 coasts, the East Coast, the West Coast, and kind of the Texas coast in a way, are they creating a concrete ceiling on media valuation, therefore, protecting themselves in the long term?
I would call it a concrete high floor. That's what I would call it.
Okay, probably more of a floor. But
and that's what and that's what the Big Ten has been doing. That's what they are. They have this very high floor to where they've got a lot of value because they got big schools, alumnus, and now these schools have been branded over decades. And yes, the biggest threat to the Big Ten continues to be demographics. You want to be able to compete for students, not just student athletes, for students. And as the population growth goes in other places in this country, other than the middle and the Midwest, that is the danger of these big schools in the Big Ten. But on the other hand, there are great advantages of being a big school, already like a big school, because other schools are falling away. We're seeing schools close up, and we're going to see more of that because we are going into the apocalypse, the student apocalypse, where the students going to colleges is going to drop off significantly because of the birth rates. We've had live shows on that. Another reason why the SEC's number 1 targets North Carolina, Virginia. And so there are protections that the Big Ten has, but they're always looking at the demographic issues as well. But go ahead, sir.
The demographic issue would add even more to the first point of you were saying floor. I'm actually talking. I know they already have the floor. I think the demographic point you're making might even add to the ceiling thing even more of what I'm talking about. You get the Big Ten and you have all these 40,000 enrollment schools in the Midwest, and you can go plant your flag in Southern California, in DFW, and in Florida. You're a mark. I mean, that goes without saying how important you are. And I wonder, obviously, that's if you get to 24 or something like that. But if the Big Ten were to ever get to 24, if targeting a Texas school, not even necessarily TCU. I know you said they had the inside track, or an Arizona State if Phoenix is growing. There are markets out there the Big Ten can really corner that by 2035, where the demographics, where people are moving, that the Big Ten has schools in there. So I thought, regardless of TCU, that's a different story, whether it's a TCU thing or a Texas thing. I think the idea of the Big Ten in Texas, assuming they eventually get into Florida as well, you have Texas, California, and Florida, is a long-term power chess move that not that it doesn't get talked about enough, but I think it's something that makes a ton of sense when you're talking about valuation of the conference and sustainability of the conference.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. And to take the conversation off the Big Ten, it's the same reason again why the SEC are targeting some schools over other schools in the next expansion of the SEC. It's why the Big 12, Brett Yormark wants to create a different blend. They're trying to get a big market up in the Northeast. And if the ACC should splinter, look for big market brands. Look for a certain, how do I say this? In other words, okay, this was talked about by Brett Yormark. I mean, not by Brett Yormark, but excuse me, not by Brett Yormark. This was talked about by Jason Scheer. We had the same exact information. We reported this a little bit. Brett Yormark, if the ACC falls apart, if it shatters, and if it doesn't, if it goes to pieces, if Florida State wins a court case, whatever, if it completely falls apart, the school that Brett Yormark really is going to target is North Carolina State. We talked about it because of the market. Now, he might get a Louisville, he might get a whatever, but that North Carolina State, if North Carolina, Virginia goes and Florida State, Clemson goes, and a lot of the ACC schools are available, it's that North Carolina State Raleigh. That is what Brett Yormark, Jason Scheer reported that. I reported that. That is the chatter behind the curtain. That is what, because it has to do. Markets are still important, ladies and gentlemen. They still are important. But go. Thank you. I appreciate the call. Anything else, sir?
Yeah, I've got one more, and then I'll let other people. Sorry, I have one more thing. Isn't there also something? Doesn't the Big Ten Network make a lot of money with carriage fees or something like that if they were to move into a Florida or a North Carolina or a Texas? Isn't there? I mean, it's not necessarily baking the cake, but it's kind of a baker's dozen type thing. Isn't that?
No, they get subscription. Now, before this last wave of expansion, the Big Ten subscription base for the Big Ten Network, the subscription base of the Big Ten Network, that number has been going downward. Just like all the other, ESPN, every cable number has been dropping, right? Same thing with the Big Ten Network, but they've been able to keep up their payments, $9 to $10 million per school, just on the Big Ten Network alone because of the added buy rates that they've been able to charge. Because the Big Ten Network keeps breaking numbers on viewership in all this.
I know.
Go ahead.
I know Jim Phillips was saying something about when they added Stanford and Cal, that was one of the underrated things. Obviously, that was a desperation move, but one of the underrated parts is it would be an economic boon for the ACC by getting into California and SMU, and they thought redistributing that wealth would actually it's not going to change the landscape necessarily, but it'd be a nice extra couple million for some members. But I didn't know. I assumed that would happen with the Big Ten Network. So that's all I've got. Thanks, Greg.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Great call. We talked about the UC Davis. Wendy Scruggs said she sent it to you, Greg. What did she send to me? I don't see any article. Expedition Greg, I have covered all of that on today's show. Thank you, but we've covered all that. Okay, I haven't seen a local news. I'm not seeing it.
Call from
Movie Time Blues.
Movie Time Blues. Can you hold on for a moment?
Sure.
Now, we did cover, okay, I covered that on this live show. We covered the WRAL, Brian Murphy report on there is an offer to Bill Belichick, and it hasn't been finalized. It has not been finalized. So, no, I don't think Rich Rod is out at West Virginia at all. Now, I did say yesterday that it's going to happen this morning, or it's not going to happen. We have reasons to believe it did happen. I know, and I know I'm not the only one. So maybe there's people in the 247 world that think it's a done deal and that it's all about the announcement, how they're going to announce it. So I don't think Rich Rod is out at West Virginia. I don't think so. Hold on, Movie Time Blues. Do we stop to think Sankey's not going to let anything happen that would undermine his legacy? Big Ten doesn't always get what they want. I've said that a million times. So, yes, Sankey might not let the Big Ten have what it wants. Preston from Greensboro, a lot of smoke. Keep your head on a swivel. Thank you, Preston from Greensboro. I have not seen an official announcement yet that Bill Belichick is the next head coach of North Carolina. I have not seen it. We've covered that he's been offered and that the UNC Board of Regents have to approve it. And I think Bill Belichick has to say yes and sign his name on a dotted line. There is lots of smoke. Thank you so much for your super chat, Preston from Greensboro. Thank you so much for your support, for your continued support, and your incredible generosity to the channel. Movie Time Blues, thank you for your patience. The floor is yours.
Yes, a couple of points. First, we talked about in the past UC Davis. And now that, I know it's only Olympic sports, but now it seems that UC Davis is going to move before Sacramento State. So that's an interesting aspect of this news.
Yeah.
Now, with regard with, what potential expansion for the Big Ten, if we're going to look at smaller schools, Tulane is there. So is South Florida. If they want to look at that in that direction, I know it's not the most sexy picks, but they have the academics, they have the market that the blend, as you say.
Yeah. I don't think. In all honesty, if the Big Ten goes to Florida, I just don't think it's going to be the University of South Florida. I just don't think it's going to happen. I
understand.
Okay, so I think there's going to be other available. Nothing against University of South Florida. My goodness, they're a big research university, much bigger than UCF. I could go on and on and on and on. They're getting a new stadium. They're going to be a growing, emerging, valuable athletic department in the ACC or in the Big 12, but I don't think they're going to be Big 10. As for Tulane, I don't think it's going to happen. Tulane,
right.
I don't. Again, Tulane's an incredible school. Definitely fits the profile of a Big Ten university. The market is not. The market isn't. I don't want to. The market may not have enough money in it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but maybe since they're located right in the middle of all that recruiting territory, it doesn't have to be like a huge program. You could just add that as as like one of those schools that that other teams would love to visit, and they probably would lose most of the games, but they'll be competitive since they have the recruiting territory. That's that's my logic.
Yeah. Let me put it this way. There are exceptions within the Big Ten. And those fan bases and markets and everything, very valuable, whatever. There's Iowa City, there's Lincoln, whatever. But if you notice, a lot of Big Ten universities follow the same. Let me come in from a different direction. Like sports leagues, right? Where do sport leagues want to put their franchises in, right? Where do they want to put them in?
The largest markets as they can, as possible.
In markets that have money that people are willing to spend on sports. Okay?
Right.
On sports. So not necessarily like where Stanford is and all that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like Northern California. There are big markets out there that don't. So if you follow that logic, you can kind of see where Big Ten mostly is interested in. There is exceptions to it, obviously. You need the right blend. Again, it goes back to blend. And like New Orleans, you got the New Orleans Saints, which is good, right? I mean, the owner they've threatened to move out of there years ago, whatever, but they're solid. It's good. The New Orleans Pelicans, they suffer. It's not real. It's not doing good. So if you're just looking at a market of between Dallas, Fort Worth, and New Orleans, just the market, I think they'd be more interested in the Dallas, Fort Worth. But again, I see people saying about TCU to Big Ten. No, we're not saying that. We're not saying that, guys. Go check out our episode 50 on our early Pete Cloak and Dagger episode for members only, and you'll get a good sense of why we talked about it today. Go ahead, Movie Time Blues. Continue on, sir.
Right. Yeah, it's very tricky. It's pretty tricky. I don't think there is like a real surefire candidate at this point, because everyone else is under the grant of rights. So, but they have the Big Ten they have market power, so they can be a little more patient than others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The only thing is will the network force the Big Ten to make a decision that they don't want, or that's the one threat that I see coming down the road. Mm-hmm. Because originally the Big Ten didn't want to quote unquote hurt the Pac-12, but they saw the threat coming their way and they had to act.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. So again, there may be a time where the Big Ten feels it serves their best interest to expand with schools, universities that beyond the number 20, we're talking. And we're talking
Right.
6-7 years from now. They may feel the need to have to plant that flag in the state of Texas. And this is where the discussion comes into. But anyways, go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So now that the G5 is now open to adding non-football programs,
Yes, sir.
what would the Big East decide to do, or the Atlantic 10 to do as a response to that?
I don't know. I do not. I don't know. And I don't, I don't really talk about college basketball here.
I understand.
I try to, I'm interested. I watch it, but I don't, because I got so much on my plate in regards to what I've got right now. I don't know. And I don't want to find out until I read it from somebody else that's breaking the news.
And I'm kind of surprised that New Mexico State hasn't been mentioned more as a candidate to either the other G conferences.
Who's this?
New Mexico State.
Okay, yeah.
So they're out there, and nobody wants them, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you go now.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for the call, Movie Time Blues. Call again, sir.
Sure.
Yeah. Ryan Thomas, A&M will jump ahead of TCU in the line of Big Ten interest. They're already ahead. But again, if you watch the episode, we believe that A&M ain't going to be available to the Big Ten. We're talking about Texas schools that could be available to the Big Ten 6-7 years from now. So yeah, A&M would be, of course, ahead of TCU, but that wasn't what we're talking about.
From
Crab cakes and football.
Crab cakes and football. Mr. Terrapin is in the house.
Hey.
Holy smokes. What's going on? What's going on with the Terrapins? Who's going in the portal? Who are you targeting?
Well, we're targeting everybody that's from Maryland that went to other schools.
Yeah, that's that's a good start.
I can't remember their names, but
Yeah.
you got that one guy from USC, and you got a guy
Sure.
from LSU, and everything else. That they're born and raised in Oklahoma. They're wide receiver from Oklahoma. That's born and raised in Maryland, but went to other schools that have eligibility now. They're in a transfer portal. Maybe they come back to Maryland.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a horrendous year. But everybody's allowed to have one every now and then. It's not like you have to stay bowl eligible every year. So it happens. But I have a question. I had a lot to say, but I'm just going to trim it down to one question. Let's just say the day comes Notre Dame says yes, okay, to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, we're ready to join, whatever. The first person or the team that they would probably bring with them, I think, or would want to bring with them, I should say, would probably be Stanford. But Stanford has that accreditation thing, and I forget the name of it. I heard Immaculate say it one time, and for the life of me, it's leaving my brain. But and everything else, but some kind of accreditation or whatever. It's kind of like the AAU, but it's more elite or whatever. And they say no. They don't want to trade ideas or be open sourced or sit there and no word I'm trying to think of, but it's leaving my brain. But they don't want to. Lord have mercy. What the AAU is all about. Do that thing with all the other institutions. So they had to, and they said no, and Notre Dame still said yes. At that point, do you think maybe a TCU is an option and a possibility to possibly be the 20th person?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, you don't think?
I don't think TCU would be 20. No.
because that would put you into Dallas and then Texas, and that would really open up your playbook when it comes to markets and everything else.
Well,
And
you know,
then
I could end up being wrong, but I don't think in that situation, if Notre Dame is 19, no offense to TCU, but I think Notre Dame will probably have other ideas in mind. And I don't think TCU would be included in that. I don't think TCU has any shot to be School 20. This would have to be,
good.
again, I did an episode on this, and I said it multiple times, nothing imminent, nothing in the near future. So if you want a good, clear picture of it, go watch our Early Peak Membership episode 50. I think a lot of people in the chat room
I watched it already.
What?
Yeah, I watched it
appreciate
already.
I think a lot of people are kind of taking liberties on what was said, but go ahead, sir.
No, I'm not going to take any liberties on that, and not try to anyway. And next, do you think the SEC's regretting not having that ninth game yet? I know they want to blame this.
I don't think so.
Because I know Alabama's throwing a fit right now, and that's probably why the price of toilet paper and tissue paper is going up, because they're doing so much crying. But, you know, the fact that they only got 8 games in conference and they lost 3 out of the 8, I think in the end, in the two of the 3 losses were 6-6 in Vanderbilt. I mean, I'm just, you know, I'm thinking at some point they have to get on the bandwagon of going to that 9th conference game if they really want to right the ship.
I'm going to have to respectfully disagree.
Fair enough.
I don't think the SEC has to go to 9 games. I think it would probably pocket them a little bit more money, but they're trying to get more money in different ways to have some sort of scheduling agreement with the Big Ten. I think Alabama's really only issue this year was Kalen DeBoer doesn't have the team. This is not his team. Not his guys. The quarterback does not fit what Kalen DeBoer does. So Alabama's going to become roaring back with the guys that Kalen DeBoer fits what he does. I think Alabama had an off year for them. For everybody else, they're a really good football team. Really good football team. But they got smoked by Oklahoma, and they almost still made the playoffs because they're a very good football team. I don't think...
If it's a 14-team playoff, they'd be in.
Yeah, they'd be in on a 14, and they would have been in if SMU would have gotten beat bad in the conference championship game. There's a whole bunch of different scenarios that in Alabama, South Carolina would have been in. I think the SEC is fine. I think they're just fine. I think people are just kind of, with all due respect, I think people have lost their minds. The SEC is in very good shape. Very good shape. They're going to be just fine. But they may go to that 9th conference game, but they're not going to go to that 9th conference game because of whatever the Big Ten says or whatever anyone else. They're going to get that 9th conference game if it gives them a little bit more green, a little bit more money, and it's worth it to them. But we'll see what happens.
All right, sir. Well, I will catch you later.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, man. No
Crab
problem.
cakes and football. Yep, 9 games, 9 conference games bring more losses. It absolutely does. Yep. Statistically, it does.
Call from
Tristan Fives.
Tristan, thanks for calling, sir. The floor is yours.
Thanks for taking my call, Greg. Hey, listen. So I didn't get to catch the entire show. I did miss the beginning. but obviously we're talking about Florida State and Clemson. And I just heard the most recent caller was talking about the SEC's ninth conference game, which everyone keeps saying they want the conference to go to 9. The principle, Greg, that I think the SEC is trying to follow is don't give the networks anything unless they pay for it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right, and
yes,
that was the I guess the motto, you might say, of Commissioner Slive. And so I think that they're at a sort of a stalemate, you might say, for the time being.
Sure.
Like the SEC is not going to budge, and the network's not going to budge. And so the thing that will cause them to go to 9, in my opinion, will be if there is another round of realignment and some schools come into the SEC, and then that triggers, in some form or fashion, that triggers an increase in revenue. Then they'll get the 9th conference game rolling along at that point.
Yeah.
That's what I think it would be. Now, I don't know who those schools have to be, and we've talked a lot about it. New markets in North Carolina and Virginia and Kansas. It could be them. It could be any one of them or 2 of them or something. I have no idea. But, they're not going to go to 9, Greg, until they get an increase in pay, and I don't think that increase comes until there's some realignment. So that's
could be right.
That's
Yep.
what has to happen.
Yep.
And so what do you make of this Bill Belichick rumor? It's kind of out there, right? But there seems to be some smoke.
Well, there was a report. We covered it early in our live show. WRAL Carolina is reporting, Brian Murphy is reporting that there is an offer. UNC has an offer in front of Bill Belichick. And it's going to take the UNC Board of Regents to approve the contract. So, yeah, the smoke is definitely real. Now, is it a done deal? I have not seen it official yet, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what they're trying to do here, Greg, and this isn't a bad plan. I sort of think it's a little bit innovative given their situation. I think what they're trying to do is use Coach Belichick to generate a lot of buzz and recruiting clout the way you have with Deion Sanders, right? So Deion's your short-term coach, and everyone knows he's not going to be there real long, but he's such a good showman or whatever, he can get the recruits in there. And I actually think that they're following that, and then they're also going along with this idea that of what LSU did in 2019, which is, if you get a head coach who's kind of a figurehead, and that's what Ogeron was at that point, you can build a stellar assistant coaching staff underneath him.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can just draw the recruits and get the good players, some 4-stars and the occasional 5-star, man, they could become pretty decent in football. There's good football talent in North Carolina, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
But no one in the state has been able to capitalize on it because they're all such, basketball-centric universities. So I think that's the strategy, and I don't think it's a bad strategy given where they are. And I just think it would be a lot of fun to see Belichick go to North Carolina. I'm all in favor of it. Greg, to me, the college football scene, it's all about the entertainment value.
Yeah.
And
The drama,
he would provide
the entertainment, yes. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm all in favor of that move. I hope it works out for everyone involved. So, listen, that's all I had. I just want to let you know, keep up the good work, and I'll be calling in again.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks
sir.
a lot.
You
See
got
you,
it.
Greg.
Beautiful. Well, I tell you what, it's been a stacked show today. Wow. So we're tracking the Bill Belichick situation. North Carolina. Is he going to be the new head coach? We have covered the latest, we believe. There is an offer to Bill Belichick. There's definite interest. The UNC Board of Trustees have to okay it. And then when they okay it, if Bill Belichick signs, it's done. It's absolutely done. And no, we don't think Rich Rodriguez is out. In fact, we think he's in. There has been, and I'm not going to say the numbers, but there's been some contract numbers that we believe are leaks that are accurate leaks. I think they're definitely at the end game, to the point where they're planning on how to make the announcement. So no, we believe, now I'll take the L. I'll absolutely take the L on tomorrow's live show if we're wrong. But I think it's a done deal. And I'm not the only one. If you go search out some people on, we think it's a done deal. And we think it was done sometime last night or early this morning. So the announcement hasn't been made. And maybe we're missing something. Maybe there's something that needs to be finalized. But we think Rich Rodriguez is still number one on the hot board and definitely is not out. So maybe we'll be wrong. But I don't think so. I don't. Look, and I'll tell you, I won't. I don't want to. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Are we doing a schedule release show tomorrow? We are going to do it. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it while it's being, at the moment it gets released. But we are going to do it. That is going to be our show tomorrow. SEC, Big Ten, I don't know what else is being released tomorrow. But we are going to get, now, the opponents are already released, but not the dates of the games. I am praying as a Minnesota Golden Gopher. I am praying that there's a little bit of a delay when the Gophers play the Oregon Ducks. And I think there will be, because the Oregon Ducks home games, some of them, I feel good that the Gophers don't have to play at Oregon early in September. Hopefully the Buckeye game is pushed off. At Iowa City, I don't care when they put Minnesota versus Iowa City. It was early this year at home at Minnesota. We got our doors blown off. I don't know. We can't win at Iowa City anyways. But that game, I'm not, whatever they do with it, that's fine. But I do not want the Gophers to have to play at Oregon, at Ohio State in September, or even early October. We're going to have a true freshman quarterback, Drake Lindsey, Arkansas Gatorade Player of the Year in 2023. And we have paid him, from all reports, he's gotten a bag of cash because he's looked very impressive in during the season. He didn't play, but people know he looks great. So we got a quarterback. We had to give him a bag of cash because the poachers were out there. A couple SEC teams were out there. So Drake Lindsey's going to stay. He's going to be our QB1. But, come on. True freshman going in Oregon, going at Ohio State, going at Iowa. Holy smoke. So I'm very interested to see what the schedule release is for the Gophers. I want all the tough games pushed way in the back of the schedule. Give Drake Lindsey some time to face live bullets. But yeah, we're gonna be watching it all. We're gonna be doing a show on it tomorrow. I do appreciate the question, Mr. John Grove. Appreciate it. Okay, we're gonna close it up. We've been on the air for 2 hours. 2 hours. We're 20 seconds away from being on the air for 2 hours. I want to thank Mr. Preston from Greensboro, Leslie A. Hill for your super chat, and Bo Weevil is a new member to the Early Peak Cloak and Dagger. Early Peak Cloak and Dagger. Thank you so much. You are officially knighted, Cloak and Dagger. Bo Weevil. We have a Clemson Tiger as a member of our channel. We've got close to 300 members, so I do appreciate all you members. If you want to become a member, go to our link at the description below the video. Hit the link, hit the join button, and that will give you, well, access to our Early Peak Cloak and Dagger episode number 50. Number 50 that we released today, that there was a lot of questions in the chat room about. So go become a member, and where more episodes are going to be being dropped, especially during the off season. It's going to be a crazy 2025. Crazy 2025. So I want to thank everybody for coming in the chat room, talking college football, for your phone calls. And until next time, tomorrow, Wednesday. Until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Florida State, Clemson's greatest leverage, the answer was in this live show. Thank you so very much.